As a filmmaker, let me begin by a short story. Um, Once upon a time, there were two small fishes who were swimming in the river one morning, and they come across a big fish uh, swimming towards them. So the big fish said, "Good morning. How's the water?" And the two small fishes, they stop at each other, look at each other, stop, and then ask, "Water? What's water?" So today I feel a little like the small fish talking about something as obvious as happiness uh, in a country like Netherlands. And when I first got the email from Tho, actually I thought it was a spam mail, one of those many that fills your inbox every day. Because although I have done many things in my life, I was a trained engineer, I made films, then I went into journalism, but none of this trade actually came close to municipal governance, of which I know nothing about. So anyway, thank you for inviting me to the Netherlands. It's a country that inspires me a lot. I have been traveling here since the 90s when I was a student in Italy. It's a country that I always get inspired because of your creativity, because of your culture, your colors, and of course, a very wide variety of cheese. So, but nothing actually comes close to this picture depicting a Dutch guy cycling with his little daughter and his dog happily on a Sunday afternoon. I think for me, this picture represents the real GNH. And of course, the mother is there making running commentaries like all mothers on earth. But for me, I can boldly say that GNH is here in the Netherlands. So I'm only going to share about what GNH is all about in Bhutan, our experience with this unique philosophy of gross national happiness.
The Simple Show explains gross national happiness. This is the fourth Dragon King of Bhutan, a beautiful country at the eastern end of the Himalayas. He became king at the age of 17 in 1972. It was then when he had to decide what should be the philosophy behind his reign. He looked at other countries and noticed in most of them the government and the people strive for economical wealth. And those few who achieve this goal usually live a comfortable life. But on the downside, many other people live in misery, poverty, or social isolation. Also, in the ruthless hunt for money, huge parts of the environment are often destroyed. This couldn't be the right path for Bhutan. The concept of gross national happiness was born. The primary idea of GNH is that every human being aspires for happiness, and a country's development should also be measured in its citizens' happiness. The fourth Dragon King's challenge, therefore, was figuring out how to balance economic development with the emotional and spiritual well-being of his people. Although economical growth can't be the only goal, a flourishing economy gives the government the funds needed to provide a working health and educational system, as well as certain living standards. Because being healthy, having opportunities for the future, and knowing that security, a steady income, housing, or well-balanced time use are guaranteed is crucial for people to be happy. But furthermore, people get a lot of positive energy from being with others and sharing interests. Participating in cultural life and to hold up local traditions and cultural heritage lead to a stronger community feeling. Healthy family relationships, advocating community activities, and religious aspects are factors for achieving happiness. It gives the Bhutanese people a strong sense of values and identity. The fourth Dragon King reigned 34 years, basing his decisions on all factors of gross national happiness, asking himself, what makes Bhutan's people happy? And the fourth Dragon King lived by example, leading a very simple life. In fact, he believed so strongly in the concept of GNH, he even decided to hand over sovereignty to the people. In 2006, he retired as king at the age of 52 and changed the course of history. 2 years later, in 2008, Bhutan elected its first representative parliament. Since then, the idea of gross national happiness has taken quite some momentum outside of Bhutan, with other countries and people around the world thinking about adopting the GNH approach to strive for development with values and to make the world a happier place.
So this video more or less sums up what gross national happiness is. But few clarifications I thought I could make here, and that is that GNH does not preclude GDP, meaning that it's not that we are only striving for happiness and blissfully living our lives in the Himalayas. Of course, we have people, we have some enlightened beings who do that, but generally it's a normal country. And Bhutan is not necessarily the happiest country. It's a brand that is often attributed to us. It's a normal country with normal challenges and with normal choices that we have to make on a day-to-day basis. So it's a normal country. But because we try to be happy, people think that we are the happiest. It's just that we are really trying to be happy, and that's what defines or what separates Bhutan. So how do we keep people happy? And I think this is a question that some of you as municipal leaders may be asking. Well, one Japanese journalist actually traveled last year around Bhutan, and she kept asking, are you happy? And the people said yes. And then she asked, but do you have problems? And they said yes. And she was a little shocked, a little puzzled. How can you be happy with problems? And the farmer replied, oh, we have the king who comes and solves it for us, so we are happy. So what I mean by that is that no matter whether it's economic development, environmental conservation, or cultural preservation, in the end, if you want to keep your people happy, it has got to be you, the leaders, the leadership, the good governance. That's the key to keeping the people happy or a nation happy. And I have the unique privilege of being the spokesperson of the king. I travel with him. I'm on a 3-year assignment, doing a second term. And one of the things that defines the institution of monarchy in Bhutan. Now, I have lived for 8 years in Italy, a country that had more governments than number of years after the Second World War. So when I look at countries like Japan or Italy with very poor leadership showing, you see that the monarchs in Bhutan are there wherever or whatever happens to the people, in joy, in sorrows. This picture comes from a big mishap last year that we had when a very big important monument was burned down. He was there to even coordinate the relief and the rescue operations. And because Bhutan does not have much or many roads leading to all the villages, we walk. The king walks with us, and we have to walk. And officials, whether people like us or the lower ones, we all have to carry our own backpacks. We don't depend on locals or porters or servants. If you cannot carry your own backpack and walk, you better stay home. And sometimes, of course, since there are no Sheraton in that part of the world, sometimes we end up sleeping in farmhouses. That's the biggest luxury. Otherwise, we end up sleeping in the open place like such as these. So this is leadership. This is governance. This is perhaps a selfless, service-oriented kind of a government or leadership that perhaps could make a country happy or a nation happy or keep the country happy. The pursuit of happiness is not new, although the video says, of course, the gross national happiness was coined by the fourth king. The pursuit of happiness is not new. It's even older than the American Declaration of Independence. A court document of 1729 refers to a line which is a translation, not as bad as that line, that government should create dewa, means good living condition, and kiba, which is peace, or cease to exist. That's the line that a court document says. The current constitution requires the state to create conditions for people to pursue GNH. So it's there in the constitution. It's a requirement of the state to keep people happy. Now, while the state has to ensure that people can pursue happiness, pursuit of happiness is more personal. It's an individual journey. It's not something that you seek outside. So what does GNH actually means or meant was that it's more to do with contentment, not so much as happiness as you understand here in the West. Because happiness, as it is understood, is more transitory. You go to Disneyland, you're happy. You get back to work, you are unhappy. That's not the happiness we're talking about. It's contentment, something more profound, something more subliminal, internal, and more absolute. So happiness is quite relative and subjective, while contentment is absolute. So how do the Bhutanese people derive contentment? Through three important values, which is Thadamtsi, Lejumde, and Dombanga. Now, Thadamtsi is mainly to do with your social commitments, you and the others in the society. You and your parents, your teachers, the village elders, your spouses. That is Thadamtsi. So you're taught to have a social commitment and obligation because you're not an island. Lejumde is known more in the West by a Sanskrit name called karma or karmic consequences, where good begets good and vice versa. And Dombanga is more personal, more internal. It's a commitment to yourself. So think values like honesty, integrity, honor comes under the third values. So when we said that GNH is development with values, it meant that we need to maintain or try to sustain these values as we move with our economic development. So has GNH paid off? Has it worked in Bhutan? Generally Bhutanese are content. You won't find a really depressed Bhutanese on any given day. Perhaps on a temporary, yes, but not generally. But if you compare some of the figures or indicators, you see that between 1982 and 2012, the GDP per capita went from 35 to 2,200, average life expectancy from 38 to 66, infant mortality down from 2,250 to 40, and Bhutan has a 72% of forest cover, of which 50% cannot be touched. It's a national park. So if you look at these figures, then you could say that the pursuit to GNH has perhaps paid off even in other areas like GDP and other living standards. It has gone global. I'm both sad and happy about it. Sad because I think happiness is not something that Bhutan should be exporting, or no country should be exporting. It's something that each country has to find their own. But it's a good thing because Bhutan has managed to raise the issue about the water being a small fish So it is something that sometimes makes me proud. Countries like UK, France, Canada, Japan have considered measuring also people's well-being as an indicator for growth and development. And in Japan in particular, there is already a district in Tokyo that has come up with a very original name, Gross Arakawa Happiness. Arakawa is the district in Tokyo. And what is interesting about Japan is that while their growth and economic living standards have skyrocketed after the Second World War, and while in other countries it has risen with the living standard and then it has flattened, in Japan actually it went down. And that was something that alarmed the Japanese. But some drastic events like the earthquake has shown that Japanese people internally, intrinsically, still have a lot of community feeling. So you could see on television a lot of people lining up, with all the discipline to buy their food, living, taking only what they needed and not just hoarding like the others. So it is something that is there, whether it's Japan or Bhutan or, I guess, Netherlands. If you were to travel into rural Bhutan, because people come looking for GNH in Bhutan, and I always tell them, go to the rural areas, because that's where the GNH is. Because there, nobody goes homeless. Somebody is always related to somebody, and somebody doesn't go hungry. You always get fed, or people share. And of course, communities, they organize themselves. They sustain against all odds, and they gather as in a communal solidarity to move forward. So this is the kind of community solidarity or community that we should build as leaders. In 1972, my house got burnt. I was a child then, and my father disappeared for a week. And when he came back with 9 horses of goods donated by his relatives, far-off relatives from where he came from, And we started off all over again. 1978, we built our house. The whole village came together to help him to build the house. And midway, his money ran off. He appealed to the king and got 8,000 nultrums. That would be around 120 euros. And with that, he completed his house. So this is kind of a community bonding feeling that perhaps may be needed if we need to keep our residents or our community happy. And the role of the government, I think this was stressed by a lot of speakers before me, should be to create such communities, but not to get directly involved, but to facilitate these communities, to let them organize themselves. The same challenges that goes for all the countries we are also going to face. More and more people are coming into the urban areas, and with satellite TV and global TV, consumerism is on the rise. But I think not all is lost. This is what I feel in my country. I come from a region where there is a culture of extended families, meaning that if you are married into a family, and if that family is large, it's as if that you're married to that family. And that if that family forms, let's say, the nucleus of the whole village, so perhaps you have married into the whole village. So these extended families sometimes come into use when you go through tragedies. And that happened to me 2 months back when my wife had an accident. I had the whole half of the country coming to see us in the hospital. And my wife, who is a Japanese, was a little shocked. One lady was very insistent that we call her because she was very closely related. And when she left, my wife asked, who's that woman? We never met her. Well, I said, she is my mother's cousin's brother's wife's daughter. No, so it was a very far-off relative, but she insisted that we are related. But still, I feel cities are still inhabited by human beings whose universal pursuit is happiness. And whether we are talking about Amsterdam or my village back in Bhutan, it's still a collection of human beings, not anything else. So as an engineer, I feel that you have a big problem. A big problem is actually a function of smaller problems. So you have a big problem, you can divide into smaller problems, and then you solve those small problems, and finally get to the big one. So this is from my engineering background, and if you divide big cities into small neighborhood communities, you create a sense of communities, I think we can achieve gross national happiness everywhere. There is a place called Changjiji it's a neighborhood in Thimphu. And until recently, Changjiji was known for all the problems and social issues of Thimphu. So the local municipal authority came with a neighborhood watch kind of program there. People were made to look out for each other. The king donated a park to the children because he wanted children's laughter and smiles to fill the air of Changjiji. Bhutan and Partners, a local NGO here in Netherlands, taught football and how to play soccer there. So troublemakers became footballers and some even entrepreneurs. So Changjiji is a success story nowadays. And I think this is something that can be done anywhere on this planet. And finally, if you run out of problems, build a temple. And this is a village lost in the wilderness I found in 2007. An NGO actually sent me to make a documentary there. But this village was in a very poor condition. There was a lot of poverty, a lot of almost misery. And because people were going through very difficult times, they were very divided. And I wrote one of my strongest articles called "What Does GNH Mean to Her?" It was a story about a very desperate woman. But I not only complained through that article, but I also worked with them. I went back to the village several times, carrying food, medicines, and housing materials, and of course, above all, myself. What I thought was they needed to feel that they are being cared. And so my presence there was more like a very, very reassuring presence. So if you are a leader, you have to be there, wherever things or wherever you need to be there. So we built houses for them. They were actually forest dwellers. And we helped them build their houses. They built their houses themselves. They organized. And each family actually started building a house. And I made the whole village come together and build one house at a time. After they were back to their feet, after the houses were built and they started growing their own crop and they started getting back to health, these people started asking me to do a temple for them. And I was I flatly refused. I said, look, I'm not here to help the Almighty. I'm here to help you. The Almighty will take care of himself wherever he is. And then but more and more, they kept insisting. And they kept insisting, and what I found out was that people who were not collaborating during the construction of the house, those who were not the black sheep, were also coming together to discuss with me on the possibility of a temple. So then I realized that a temple is not just a place of worship. It's a place where the community comes together. It goes beyond spiritual needs. So fast forward to 3 years, we have more or less a temple. And that's my last story. So in conclusion, whatever you do or you try to do, find your temple, build your community, a place that will bring the children, youth, elders, professionals together. It's a place where people will come and with problems, but will go reassured. And it can be a permanent place, like the temple, or it can be a temporary event. And because 1 hour of happiness or 1 year of happiness really does not change things as long as you can keep the residents happy. And time is irrelevant. And my closing word is that in GDP, time is money. In GNH, time is life. Thank you very much for being happy.
Thanks. Thank you so much for this presentation, especially the last phrase is really cool. You know, and time is irrelevant is really something to think about. But one thing puzzles me, and you say that this whole idea of gross national happiness is not something that Bhutan should export. So what do you do here?
That's why I get very puzzled, and also I do think a lot of time before I accept an invitation.
Okay.
And it always makes me think if I have anything to share or if we have anything to talk about. Something as obvious as happiness. But since I've been invited here, I think it would have been rather rude for me to say no.
Yeah. I can imagine that's really something that you struggle with. From the one hand, you know that you shouldn't do this. I mean, it's their problem. They should solve it. On the other hand, you want to help these poor people in this country, and I can imagine you have this problem. Yes. Intriguing. Very, very nice story. But I know that there is someone with a special question, and that's the mayor of Roerdalen, but I don't see her. Oh, there she is. And you have since she has a local happiness initiative, and you have a question for Dorji, isn't it? Or something to remark on the same topic. So please go ahead and say whatever you wish to share with us about your initiative, or ask the question that you have for Dorji. But first, tell us your name, and you can use that mic, I guess, and you should stand here.
Okay, thank you. I don't have a question. I just discussed with Tof Tissen that we had a wonderful experience last year. We invited the Minister of Bhutan, Mr. Dago Tsiring, and his ambassador from Brussels, because during the period just before the Floriade, our people met people from Bhutan, and they noticed that the community of Roerdalen, has a motto: klein geluk vind je in Roerdalen. Small happiness you find in Roerdalen. And then we noticed Bhutan was telling, gross national happiness is a wonderful idea and we want to share it. So we decided to share our ideas about happiness with the Minister of Bhutan, and we invited him in Roerdalen. And it was a wonderful event, and we learned a lot of the people of Bhutan. And I noticed again that what strikes me is that the people of Bhutan are so open and so willing, sharing their ideas. Okay. And that was for us in Roerdalen in these times where everyone is discussing the bad times and money is just a problem, that happiness is not only a thing which is caused by money, but that there are small little things you also find in our community, like a green environment, and that makes you happy. And that was the idea we shared.
Thanks for your contribution. Did you know this whole, no, please stand. Did you know of this Roerdalen and this invitation?
No, honestly.
You were not aware of that.
Not
so
aware.
There's a whole export business actually from Bhutan to all kinds of initiatives, which is a good thing in the end. Maybe not for you, but for the rest of the world, I guess it's a good thing. And here we see, I think, an example of how. You know, we saw that we know where we might want to go to, but we don't know how. Well, here is a how. Yeah, so that was one of the problems that was, that you came up with. Well, we don't know. We don't hear any hows. Well, here is a how. So I want to thank you for both your contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.